The scripture reading this morning is brought to you by 1 John 3, 11 through 12. 1 John 3, 11 through 12. This is what it reads. For this is the message you heard from the beginning. We shall love one another. Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and had murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteousness. Come preach the word.
Good morning. I got to set up this first. All right, I don't know if you know about this guy, this young man. His name is Arnold Spirit Jr. I think I got to change the picture. That's not the right picture. All right. Yeah, his name is Arnold Spirit Jr., who is a 14 years old boy from Spokane Indian Reservation, born in a tribe called Coeur d'Alene, whatever they call. So it's like a small tribe in Indian American, born with the water on a brain. So he got water on a brain. But that is too much. That is too much with like a cerebral spinal fluid in his brain, which damaged his brain when he was an infant. And he notes that it might be more specific to say that his brain was drowning in grease. So, but his statement sounds too goofy, and he says that he was born with water on the brain. Seems more serious and poetic and accurate. That's how he explains. And hydrocephalus gave him a number of physical problems, such as he got extra 10 teeth in his mouth, and a lopsided vision, and the healthcare system the healthcare system on his reservation had a limited ability to take care for him because he's on a reservation. For instance, because the Indian Health Service only funded major dental work once a year. He had to get all 10 teeth pulled out at once. Imagine all the 10 teeth pulled out at one time. After looking, also, he looks like unusual with a large head and large hands and feet on a very skinny body, and suffered from seizures and stutter and lisp. Because of this, he has always been bullied by other kids in school and by some other adults. He gets beat up at least like once in a month. At least like once in a month. So he prefers to spend time alone inside his room, reading books and drawing cartoons. That's his story. So this is an interesting guy that you got to know about because he got a lot of things to tell for you. You can see on the picture, he got a large head, like big teeth, and like large feet and hands. Nobody loves him. Nobody liked him. People bullied him, not only his friends and like some other kids, but even adults make fun of him. Because being in an Indian reservation, he had a limited ability. But he never gave up because he loved people, even the people doesn't like him. So you can see the picture right here, the chicken. The reason why I put that picture is he loves chicken a lot. Being born in a poor family, his poverty cannot afford a chicken piece like a Kentucky Fried Chicken, whatever. But he always wait for his parents. Maybe they're gonna break the door and come and bring like a Kentucky Fried Chicken for him. So being in a poor family, they're not able to afford. And imagine this one: they eat just once in a day, sometimes two times in a day, and for the most part, they are hungry for like 18 hours in a day because of their poverty. As he explains why chicken means so much to me, he says, surely sometimes my family misses a meal and sleep is the only thing we have for dinner. But I know that sooner or later, my parents will come bursting the door with a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And believe me, a good piece of chicken can make anybody believe in the existence of God. That's what he explained in his novel and his poets. And thus, chicken demonstrates and symbolizes the fact that Junior's mom and dad, despite their poverty, they will always be there to love and support him in the same way that they will always come home with food after a while. Even in the poverty, they still love this little guy, Junior. They still want to provide that food for him. That's how they show love and support. And imagine, when he was a little bit older, like 14 years, he ran away from home because he wants to pursue a better opportunity, get a better opportunity. He left home seeking better opportunity, but still cherishes the memory of sharing simple meals like fried chicken with his family, representing a connection he doesn't want to lose. He had that great connection to his family, even though they're very poor. The image of the return is also important when Junior hopes and prays at the end of the novel that he'll be able to see his family and Rowdy, who is a friend, after he leaves, and that they will forgive him for leaving the house. One answer might be that in Junior's family, you can always trust that somehow people will always come home. He feels so regret for leaving the home because he missed that love, even though being born in a poor family. I don't know how this story applies to loving one another, but one of the things that I want to stress on is, even in the midst of poverty, that little family love each other. They never gave up on themselves, but they love each other. So when he writes the poems and stories, whatever, one of the things he struggles in his life is, somebody love me. He's asking somebody to please love me in the school. Don't bully me, don't hate me because of how I look like, but please somebody love me. He stressed this word when he wrote this thing in his novel for the most part. And now, when John wrote a letter to the people in the first century, one of the things that people, the Antichrist, or maybe people like deceptive doctrine, or maybe Greek philosophers, they're trying to do is they're trying to disrupt the love between the brothers in the church. And you got to remember three things here, what was going on in the church. One thing is the light and the truth and the love. These are three main important things that John stressed in his letter of John. You might have heard a lot of things in the previous past days when you heard from a lot of students here. But one of the things, if you have your Bibles this morning, I would like you to open for 1 John chapter 3. 1 John chapter 3, verse 11 to 18. So these are my verses that I'm be talking about. But as you examine this, as you meditate on these verses right now, I want you to focus on certain things, but I want you to keep in mind these three things when you read this particular context in the Bible. The first thing is we should love. We should love. And John said, this is the message you heard from the beginning. This is a message you heard from the beginning. We should love one another. John is talking about not just a normal love, not just a regular love, or maybe not just a worldly love, but he's talking about agape love. The love between, the mutual love between the brothers in the church. And Gippy did an awesome job explaining agape love in the class that I took last year. But this is the love that was connected to the beginning, because the Satan keeps sinning from the beginning. When he chose to sin, and when he chose Cain to sin against his brother. Cain didn't love his brother Abel, but his unrighteousness made him to kill his righteous brother Abel. And this is connected to the beginning in the Genesis 1. This is the mutual love. And the depth of love that we should have for our brothers. That's what the main emphasis of John here. And in verse 12, he said, do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. Now let me ask you this thing. There might be people like you encountered in your future, or maybe you have already encountered in the past, that even in the family, there are people who doesn't like each other. I'm not talking about different things in this world, but I'm talking about how we can love a brother, how we can have that mutual love between our brothers, and how we can put ourselves away from a thoughts like how Cain got in the beginning. And Hebrew writers in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 10, Solomon explained like this: bloodthirsty men hate men of integrity and seek to kill the upright. And now Abel was a righteous man. He's an upright man, and Cain was not. Cain was not. And that made him to kill his brother because his brother was integrated man. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, Hebrew writer says, by faith Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith he was commanded as a righteous man when God spoke well of his offering, and by faith he still speaks even though he is dead. And I'm speaking about him right now. He is dead like long time ago. By faith, he offered a better offering, and unfortunately, Cain doesn't have that faith. Cain doesn't have that righteousness in his heart. If a person who doesn't have righteousness in his heart, they feel jealous about other people's integrity, other people's uprightness. And I want to explain this one, why we should love. Recently, there is a survey that has been made, not recently, like few years ago. According to the recent online survey conducted by Ipsos on behalf of Cigna, many Americans experience feeling of loneliness. This includes more than half, that means 54%, who says they always or sometime feel as though no one knows them well. And just under half who report sometimes are always feeling alone, that is 46%, if you can see over there. And are feeling left out, they are 47%. And about 2 in 5 who say they lack companionship, which means no love between partners. They are 43%. And that their relationship are not meaningful. Again, no love, 43%. And that they are isolated from others because they think that no one loves them. They're 43%. And all that they are no longer close to anybody, still they think, no one likes me, no one loves me, just like you see the guy on the screen, Junior. There are people, these are things that go on in the United States and many parts in the world. And on the other hand, those who never have in-person interaction are also less likely to have balance in their lives. No balance. With only 36% saying that they get the right amount of sleep every day just because of depression and thinking like nobody likes me, nobody loves me. And 37% saying that they get the right amount of sleep or right amount of family attraction, family time, and they're like 37%. Because they found love, care, and whatever you call, they find that in their family. And in a recent UK studies of millions of people found that 1 in 10 people didn't feel that they had a close friend. 1 in 10 people, they find that they don't have a close friend, while 1 in 5 never or rarely, notice this, felt loved. 1 in 5 in a million people survey. Now you might be wondering, why am I talking about these things? Because these are things that go on in this world because we are lacking love in this world. A lot of people becoming like Cain, but not like Abel. And that's why we need to love one another. That's why we should love people. our brothers and sisters. And the second point that I want you to keep in mind, the world does not love us. We should love the world. We should love people, but the world does not love us. And that's what John is trying to say in verse 13. Do not be surprised, my brothers. Do not be surprised, my brothers, if the world hates you. We know that we have passed from the dead to life because we love our brothers. Anyone who does not love remains in death. It is likely that the Christians of this time were enduring hatred and mistreatment by those on the cutting edge. Now, let me ask you this thing. If you are a Christian, have you ever experienced that somebody hates you because you are a Christian? Or maybe somebody dislike you just because you are a Christian? Or maybe when you're preaching gospel to somebody and somebody sees like bullying at you, yelling at you for preaching the gospel or talking about Jesus. Those people doesn't have love in them. Those people doesn't like the gospel. And love is the evidence of righteousness. And remember, you got to remember this. Love is the evidence of righteousness. If you love God and if you obey His commands, you are a righteous person. And not only just obeying His commands, you got to obey that you have to love one another. Verse 14, he says, we know that we have passed from the death to life because we love our brothers. Anyone who does not love remains in death. If you are born again, if you are raised from that water, you should leave that past life in that water. You should live that life, and you need to live according to the commandment of God. You need to live according to what Jesus says. You have to love one another. You need to love, not only just loving person who's right next to you, or maybe a person in the church, but you got to remember that you have to love everybody. Anyone who is angry with his brother will subject to judgment. Jesus said this on the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5, verse 22. Not only just murdering, but if you are angry against anybody, you are committing a murder. And you will be subject to judgment. As Christians, we are not supposed to be like that. And that's what John is telling to the church in the first century. And one who destroys life has set himself against eternal life. If you try to destroy other people's life, and remember this, you will not have the eternal life. And the third thing that I want to remember here is we should not love as the world loves. We should not love as the world loves, because our love is different from the world's love. The world doesn't love just like we love other people. In verse 16, and John says, this is how we know that what love is. Jesus Christ laid down His life for us, and we are to lay down our lives for our brothers. How many people do that? How many people are doing that? If you are sitting here, how many people are laying your lives down for your brother? One of the things, the commentary that I read, the commentator said, love takes place when we become other-centered rather than self-centered. If we are self-centered, we are not loving other people, but we have to be other people's self-centered. We got to understand their feelings. We got to understand how they are feeling. And then we have to love them. We need to lay down part of which we have to give to a needy brother. And John says in verse 17, if anyone has material possessions and sees his brother in need, but has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him? How can it be? If he cannot help other people, and how can you say that you love God if you don't love other people? We must do more than just talk about love. Not just talking about love, but we got to do more than just talking about love. And you got to show that love in actions. And unfortunately, people in the first century, that's what lacking in the church. Which of course they do have, but the other people like Gnostics and philosophers with their doctrines, a lot of issues going on in the church, they're trying to disrupt the love and the teaching of Jesus. And this might be a small passage to talk about, but these are the three things that we have to remember when we are reading the scriptures, because it's very important in these days right now to love one another. Not only just we should love, but we got to be aware that the world does not love Christians. But we are not supposed to love as world loves. Remember that whenever you go out, whenever you go out of this church building, whenever you're talking to somebody, or whenever you're talking about Jesus, make sure that you carry that love with you. Make sure that you carry the love of Jesus with you, and never fail to love people. Ronald Reagan said, I'm not political. Ronald Reagan said, there is no limit to the amount of good you can do. If you don't care, who gets the credit? You cannot put a period to love. You don't have like a boundaries for the love. But you have to love to the nth degree. You got to love one another, not only just saying that, hey, I love you, I care for you, but you got to show that in actions. And you will get that credit. And Jeff Jenkins, I think a few of you know this man. He's a great man. He said he got this from his father when he was a young boy. His father said, son, preach the word and love the people. You cannot suppress these two words. When you're preaching word, you got to remember that you have to love the people as well. Not only just preaching word. If you have that knowledge, if you gain knowledge here, and if you're trying to go to apply that knowledge on somebody else, and if you don't love, you cannot win a soul. But you have to love people. You have to love how Jesus loved people. And that's the thing John is trying to tell to the church in the first century. Love, love, love. Living in that light. Surviving in that light. And the final thing that I want to, before I step down, I want to ask you this question, but I want you to think. Just like think the picture of a chicken. So one of the things that Arnold likes is, like I said, Kentucky Fried Chicken, because he likes that most. Whenever his parents bring that chicken, he feels that my parents love me, my parents support me. And that's one of the things that made him to write a book about why chicken means so much to me. Why it means so much to me. Now I want to ask you this morning, take the chicken off, put your name on it, and how can I be means to so much to her or him? How can I be like Jesus to him or her? You got to put your name on that. And the other thing that I want to tell you before I close this, it costs nothing. It costs nothing to say somebody, how you doing today? It costs nothing to say somebody how you are feeling today if they're sick. It costs nothing to tell your brother and sister or anybody, how can I help you? That's how you share the love of Jesus. That's how you personify Jesus in you. People didn't come to Jesus first. He went to the people first. He shared that love, and then people started following him. And I hope that this lesson gives you a better understanding of what love means. But I want to tell you that not only just loving in words, but love in actions. Let's stand and sing. Sorry, you have a good day.